Welcome to Shannons Club TV, where we look back on classic cars that survived the Australian road and race landscape. You'll find a huge selection of previous episodes on the Shannons Club website, along with the full stories by Mark Oastler and me.
Now stay with us as we meet a proud owner of our feature car and we get the latest market news from the Shannons auctions team. Right now, let's look back at the first mass market rotary powered sports car, the Mazda RX7.
The Mazda RX7 was launched in Australia in March 1979 and was, in every sense, a unique sports car as well as a unique Mazda. Although the company's first rotary-powered car was the Cosmo 110S, subsequent rotary models all shared their bodies and most of their remaining mechanicals with conventionally powered Mazdas. So the R100 was like a 1200 coupe, the RX2 a Capella, the RX3 an 808 and so on. It was as if Mazda was not prepared to back the Wankel rotary engine all the way by creating another unique vehicle like the Cosmo, until the RX7. Although it was hardly cheap at $15,000, twice the price of a Commodore, the RX7 was still only half the price of a Porsche 924. Mark, I'm thinking that the RX7 was light enough to perform very well with the 12A engine.
Well, it sure was in local Group C touring car racing. I mean, if you think about those works cars, they were probably well under the car's standard curb weight of about 1,000 kilos. Now, that's several hundred kilos lighter than the V8 Commodores and Falcons it was racing against. At that rate, the little 12A only needed about 270, 280 brake horsepower to give the RX7 a competitive power to weight ratio, which I'm sure those engines did. Plus you had to take into account it was smaller, very aerodynamic, so it would have been quicker through the air. And you can never forget that near perfect front to rear weight distribution. So that car had a lot going for it.
Many very important features.
Yeah.
The success of the RX3 in racing inspired Mazda to develop a purpose-built sports car with a lower centre of gravity and better balance. A prototype was ready in early 1977. Curiously, one benchmark car was the Triumph TR7, not only because of the modern appearance, but also because of the Triumph's phenomenal torsional stiffness. There were few weak points, although purists felt the recirculating ball steering was too vague and would have preferred rear disc brakes. The carryover 12A rotary got a power and torque boost. A new chrome plating process was applied to the trochoidal surfaces or inner chambers, reducing rotor tip seal wear, the fatal flaw of the Wankel engine up until then. A 5-speed gearbox with a lovely shift was standard on all Australian delivered RX7s. The Series 2 arrived here in 1981 with integrated front and rear bumpers and superior aerodynamics. Power climbed from 77 kilowatts to just on 85, and there was a smaller increase in torque. In 1984, we got the Series 3 with 14-inch alloys instead of 13s, four-wheel ventilated disc brakes and more equipment. Mark, is it fair to say that one Alan Moffat raced the RX7 to legendary status in Australia?
Yeah, he sure did. But I tell you what, there was plenty of political heartache along the way. The Group C era of Aussie touring car racing from 1973 to 1984 triggered as many confrontations in the courtroom as it did on the racetrack. But no car created more controversy during that volatile time than Alan Moffat and Mazda's RX7. From the moment its entry was proposed in the late 1970s, the little rotary-powered sports coupe from Japan challenged accepted thinking on what an outright contender in 1980s touring car racing could be. The RX7 had global approval as a Group 1 touring car, yet Aussie opponents claimed it was a sports car. There was also strong resistance to Mazda's request to use peripheral porting on its 12A rotary engine to allow the tiny twin rotor to produce more power to be competitive in the outright class. After 13 months of deliberations, the peripheral port RX7 was finally approved for Group C racing in 1981. John, it's interesting looking at this kerfuffle over the peripheral porting. You know, it's no different on a conventional piston engine to fitting larger valves or a freer flowing inlet manifold or hotter camshaft. But I guess it's human nature to fear what you don't understand.
What they didn't understand was not just the engine, but the car itself. And I think that's the bigger issue. They were really worried about the car itself. And of course, they didn't really understand the rotary engine anyway. So it was right up against it, a lot of opposition.
It was a really interesting time too, because one of the biggest criticisms was that it had, a long bonnet, a short boot, 2 doors, flowing roof. You look at a Chevy Camaro. Hello, that's just the same shape, just in a bigger form. But that never attracted the same sort of criticism because it had a V8.
How about a Falcon hardtop?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Alan Moffat was the spearhead for Mazda's RX7 Attack, which enjoyed direct factory support from Japan. Over 4 seasons, Moffat and his RX7 provided some of the best touring car racing ever seen in Australia, with numerous giant-killing performances against more powerful V8 and turbocharged opponents. Privateer Peter McLeod, in a self-prepared RX7, also chipped in by winning the 1983 Endurance title. Although a Bathurst win proved elusive, the RX7's trophy haul was most impressive, with Moffat's greatest achievement being his victory in the 1983 Australian Touring Car Championship. With a combination of superb driving, factory-backed preparation and some sharp race tactics, the Works Mazda team took full advantage of the Japanese car's strengths, winning 4 rounds and setting 5 new lap records along the way. Regardless of their many critics, Moffat and his RX7 were one of the most exciting and controversial driver and car pairings the sport has seen, and left an indelible legacy. Other great episodes of Shannons Club TV are available to view anytime on the club website.
My name's John Wright. I'm retired from Mazda Australia, so I had a little bit of involvement with the Heritage Collection in my time. This particular car we're featuring is a Series 1 RX7. Yeah, look, the car was sold new in March '79 by City Mazda in Victoria. We purchased this car probably about 5 years ago from a private seller. It had been sitting in his garage for quite some time. The bodywork was in pretty good nick, a few marks as you'd expect. The interior was pretty right. We only cleaned it inside, so it was in very, very good condition. The engine, however, was a bit sad and we had to get a major rebuild done. Fairly advanced for its day. It's a 2-chamber rotary engine, a total capacity 1146 cc's, output around 77 kilowatts, coupled to a 5-speed gearbox. You can drive it pretty hard. It'll take anything you can do to it, and it's quite a nice car to drive in any environment. So just a nice, nippy sports car, really. I've got vehicles insured with Shannons, most of them Mazdas, and I'm a member of the Shannons Club, and I've been coming to auctions at Shannons in Melbourne on and off for the last decade. I worked for Mazda for a very long time, and when you're close enough to the product and the brand, yes, you do become passionate about it. There have been rotary engine cars prior to this, but this was the first RX7 series, pretty groundbreaking in its day. I think the collectability of those cars is on the improve. They were always very good when they were released, and people are certainly appreciating them as they get older, providing you can find a good one to hang on to.
Shannons National Auctions Manager Chris Barban joins us with some market tips on the first series Mazda RX7. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, John.
Welcome, mate. Mark. Look, with this first generation RX7, the number of these cars that you see in all forms of grassroots motorsport competition, street sedans, hill climbs, rallies, whatever,
Yeah.
I reckon you would really struggle these days to find a nice, stock standard, original example. Would that be right?
It's probably the right comment. I think. Look, I think it's been accepted amongst enthusiasts over the years that it's natural to modify an RX7 Series 1, 2 or 3.
I think there's a weird paradox about rotary engine Mazdas. I was around when these cars came out, and the RX7 was just so much sexier than the RX2 and the RX3 and all the others. But those early cars have skyrocketed in value.
Yes.
left
Yep.
the RX7 behind, and I think perhaps paradoxically they're pulling the RX7 up. Is that about right? Or?
That is true. I think given the rise of the R100s, RX2s, RX3 models, they have definitely brought the early RX7s up in value.
But why is there? I don't understand that, the divide. You think of a Series 1 or original model RX7, you know, the weight distribution, the sporting prowess that car had.
The look of it.
And the look of it. Why is there a big gap in demand like for RX2, RX3 and RX7's trailing behind? What, have you figured that out? It doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Yeah, look, I think the survival rate of the RX2s and 3s and R100 especially is so low today that that's probably definitely...
They're rare.
Yeah, it's a rarity. And again, if you go back to the R100, that was really the first production car, I guess, you know, apart from the Cosmo, that, you know, we got hold of in Australia. So it really... You know, there really is a handful of survivors today, and I think that's really helped to get those values up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it's logical that if there are, as Mark Oastler is saying, so few surviving original RX7s, that they're likely to go up in value.
And we're still getting calls from the one lady owner cars that have owned the car from new. You know, unfortunately, most of them are automatic, so you're looking for the manual variant.
Yes, yes.
That's probably what's more collectible with the enthusiasts out there.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, but you still get those calls once in a while. It's a matter of finding those cars.
Oh, terrific.
I mean, like the issue now, though, of course, is parts. If you wanted to go original, I'm talking to our Mazda performance friends, the 10A is virtually extinct. And the 12A, which the RX7 used, that's very hard to get now too.
Correct, yeah. The 12A housings, original or replacement housings, are getting near impossible to find. So you do see people going to the 13Bs because the parts are more readily available, but there are people that are trying to restore the cars back to original, so they are holding out to try and find those original 10A or 12A housings.
Well, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, mate.
Chris.
Thanks, John. Mark.
And remember, you'll find all the latest market updates on the Shannons Club website. If you'd like a memorable image of the Mazda RX7 in competition, visit the archive at autopics.com.au.
It's interesting looking back at that first Mazda RX7, John. You know, the first mass market, mass produced rotary powered sports car in the world. No one can take that away from Mazda.
Well, the thing is, you see, Mazda trusted itself with that, just as it did later with the Mazda MX-5. But with the second generation, for some reason, they went all sort of, we've got to look at Porsche, we've got to look at Europe and do something different.
Yeah.
As a result, the second generation RX-7, known in Australia as the Series 4, was sort of like a cut price alternative to a Porsche rather than a unique object in its own right.
Yeah, they didn't back themselves on the second generation.
They stopped backing themselves.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's interesting.
I think so. We hope you've enjoyed looking back on the first series RX7, and we'll catch you next time on Shannons Club TV.